In the early 2000s, the small town of Oregon City was shaken to its core. Two young girls, best friends, vanished without a trace just months apart. Their disappearances sparked one of the largest manhunts in Oregon history and left a community gripped by fear. Neighbors whispered, parents clutched their children tighter, and every passing day without answers only deepened the nightmare. But the truth, when it came, was even more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Because the monster everyone feared wasn't lurking in the shadows. It was hiding in plain sight. If two children disappeared in your neighborhood within weeks of each other, who would you suspect first? A stranger or someone you already knew? January 9th, 2002 began like any ordinary school morning. 12-year-old Ashley Marie Pond, a bright, energetic middle schooler, left her home in the Newell Creek Village apartments. She was walking the short 5-minute path to her bus stop. But that morning, she never arrived. Ashley wasn't the type to run away without telling someone. She was close to her mother, Lori, and had dreams of becoming a dancer. When she didn't return home, her mother called police. Soon, search parties formed. Flyers went up around town, bloodhounds were brought in, and volunteers combed the nearby woods. But nothing, no footprints, no clothing, no clues. It was as if Ashley had disappeared into thin air. Imagine being her mother, waiting at the window, thinking your daughter might walk back through the door at any moment. How long before hope starts turning into dread? 2 months later, on March 8, 2002, tragedy struck again. 13-year-old Miranda Gaddis, Ashley's best friend, also failed to arrive at school. She had been deeply shaken by Ashley's disappearance, and her family knew she would never just vanish voluntarily. Panic erupted. Now 2 girls from the same apartment complex were missing. Parents began escorting their children to school. Neighborhood meetings were held. Every shadow seemed threatening. The community believed a predator was hunting children in Oregon City. But detectives weren't so sure. Something about the case felt different. It felt personal. At first, investigators cast a wide net. They questioned family members, neighbors, and anyone who had crossed paths with the girls. Nearly everyone became a suspect in the eyes of the public. But one name kept returning to the top of the list: Ward Weaver III. Weaver lived in the same apartment complex. Ashley had been friends with his daughter and often visited their home. Weaver had a disturbing history: domestic abuse allegations, violent temper, and even family connections to murder. His father, Ward Weaver Jr., was serving a sentence on death row in California for killing a woman and burying her in his backyard. When detectives questioned Weaver, he seemed almost eager for attention. He gave interviews to local reporters from his porch, sometimes smiling, sometimes joking. In one interview, he even sarcastically said that police might as well dig up his yard. At the time, it sounded like a dark joke. Later, it would be revealed as a chilling clue. The more police looked into Weaver, the more suspicious he became. He failed polygraph tests. His timeline of events didn't add up. Neighbors began noticing strange behavior. He poured fresh concrete in his backyard soon after the girls went missing. Despite mounting suspicion, investigators still lacked hard evidence. Months passed, and the community's fear turned to anger. Why couldn't police catch whoever was responsible? The case finally broke in August 2002, when Weaver was arrested for raping the daughter of his live-in girlfriend. With him in custody, investigators obtained warrants to search his property. What they found was every parent's worst nightmare. In Weaver's backyard, beneath that freshly laid slab of concrete, police discovered the remains of Miranda Gaddis. In a nearby storage shed, they found the remains of Ashley Pond. The truth was unbearable. Both girls had been murdered and hidden in the very place they were supposed to feel safe, just steps away from their homes. Forensic evidence confirmed Weaver's guilt. In 2004, he pleaded guilty to the murders to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The discovery shattered Oregon City. Parents who had lived in terror now had answers, but those answers brought little comfort. The man responsible wasn't a faceless stranger. He was the neighbor down the street. He had watched the search parties, spoken to reporters, and lived freely while the families of Ashley and Miranda suffered. The case became a stark reminder that danger isn't always distant or anonymous. Sometimes it's the familiar face, the friendly neighbor, the person you least expect. The murders of Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis remain one of Oregon's darkest tragedies. Two young lives, full of potential, cut short by someone they trusted. What do you think? How can communities truly protect their children when the greatest danger can be hiding in plain sight, disguised as a friend or neighbor? Two young lives were lost, but their story will never be forgotten. We share it to honor Ashley and Miranda, and to remind ourselves of the importance of protecting our communities. If you'd like to help keep their memory alive, share this video and join our community by subscribing for more true crime documentaries. Until next time, stay safe. We upload new true crime documentaries regularly, and the next one is already on its way. Stick around, subscribe, and join us as we continue uncovering the cases that demand to be told. Imagine stepping into a stranger's home, only to discover he's been waiting for you, not as a guest, but as prey. In August of 1996, 18-year-old Brooke Weber and her boyfriend Jeffrey thought they were walking into a simple conversation. Instead, they walked into the lair of Gary Carl Simmons, known as the Butcher of Mississippi. Inside his house was something no one was meant to see, a human-sized box built for captivity. Tonight, we uncover how Brooke faced a nightmare no teenager should ever live through, and how she turned the butcher's own creation against him. Stay with us, because what happens in this house will shock you to your core. Mississippi, August 1996. In a quiet town outside Moss Point, an 18-year-old girl named Brooke Weber and her boyfriend Jeffrey Wolf walked into the home of a man they believed was just another local. But this man, Gary Carl Simmons, was no ordinary neighbor. He was a butcher by trade and by obsession. Inside his home, Simmons had built something terrifying, a human-sized box designed not for storage, but for control, pain, and death. What happened next would test Brooke's strength, expose Simmons' madness, and become one of the most chilling survival stories the state had ever seen. Gary Carl Simmons grew up in Mississippi with a reputation for being tough, short-tempered, and deeply controlling. By his 30s, he worked as a butcher, skilled with knives, precise, methodical. But those skills extended far beyond the cutting floor. His marriage to Lori Simmons was a storm of violence and control. Friends later recalled Lori saying she feared Gary would kill her. Eventually, she fled with their children, escaping into hiding. Alone, Gary's anger twisted into obsession. He built a large wooden box in his home, reinforced with metal, fitted with locks, padded in ways that suggested prolonged use. It wasn't furniture. It wasn't storage. It was a prison. Gary's co-workers at the butcher shop noticed he had a fascination with blades. His freezer at home held more than meat. His journals revealed fantasies of trapping, dominating, and torturing. And yet, outwardly, he played the role of the neighbor, the man who could lend a hand. Behind closed doors, the butcher's box waited for its first victim. Brooke Weber was 18, freshly out of high school. She had dreams of moving beyond Mississippi, making something of herself. She was lively, intelligent, and fiercely independent. Her boyfriend, 21-year-old Jeffrey Wolf, was her anchor. He was protective, caring, the kind of young man who would do anything to keep her safe. Together, they were inseparable. On an August evening, the couple met with Simmons. It was supposed to be routine. Jeffrey had dealings with him, and Simmons suggested they stop by his house. But when they walked through his door, they had no idea they were walking into a nightmare designed long before they arrived. The moment they stepped inside, Brooke sensed something was wrong. The air smelled of raw meat, bleach, and decay. The kitchen gleamed unnaturally clean, knives lined in perfect order. Then Brooke saw it. The box. It sat in the corner of the room, unassuming to the untrained eye. But its size, its locks, its reinforced frame, it screamed danger. She froze. Jeffrey noticed too. Gary Simmons' demeanor shifted. His voice dropped. His smile faded. The trap was sprung. Jeffrey resisted, lunging at Simmons, but the butcher's strength was brutal. Gary grabbed a weapon. Reports later described a .22 caliber rifle he kept nearby. Brooke screamed as Jeffrey was overpowered, struck, and dragged toward the box. Gary relished in control. He threatened Brooke, forcing her to comply as he bound Jeffrey. He made it clear, the box wasn't just for show. "You're mine now, both of you. Nobody leaves until I say." Brooke refused to break. She watched Simmons carefully, his patterns, his arrogance. He loved to talk. He loved to explain. He believed fear made him powerful. But his obsession made him sloppy. He left a knife too close to the counter. He latched the padlock sloppily, overconfident in his control. Brooke played along. She cried. She begged. She made him think she was compliant. Then, when his back turned, she moved. Fast. She grabbed the knife. Adrenaline surged. She slashed at his arm, forcing him to drop his grip. She shoved him backward, using all her strength to turn his weapon against him. In a cruel twist of fate, the butcher's box became Simmons' prison. Brooke slammed the lid, trapping him inside, using his own creation to neutralize him long enough to drag Jeffrey out of the house. Barefoot, bleeding, terrified, Brooke half-carried Jeffrey into the humid Mississippi night. They stumbled down the dirt road until headlights appeared. A driver stopped, horrified by the sight of the young couple. Police swarmed Simmons' property within the hour. What they found shocked even veteran officers. The box, the restraints, the weapons, journals of sadistic fantasies. Evidence of a man who had been planning horrors for years. Simmons was arrested on the spot. His trial revealed the depths of his sickness. The butcher's box became the centerpiece of the case, a symbol of premeditated cruelty. The jury didn't hesitate. Gary Carl Simmons was sentenced to death. He would spend the rest of his days on Mississippi's death row, known forever as the Butcher of Moss Point. Brooke Weber survived. Against impossible odds, she turned her captor's weapon into his undoing. Though scarred, she refused to let Gary Simmons define her life. Her courage became a reminder. Even in the darkest of places, there is a chance to fight back. In the end, Gary Simmons built a box for others, but it became the coffin for his own freedom. And Brooke Weber, she became the proof that even monsters can be outsmarted. Gary Carl Simmons remained on death row in Mississippi until his execution in 2012. Brooke Weber and Jeffrey Wolfe never forgot the night they escaped the butcher's box. Gary Carl Simmons built a box to trap others, but in the end, it became the evidence that trapped him forever. Brooke Weber's courage turned a nightmare into survival, proving that even in the darkest places, there is always a chance to fight back. But what do you think? Was Simmons a man driven purely by obsession, or was his evil something far deeper? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story shook you as much as it shook us, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because we have more cases, more mysteries, and more stories of survival that you won't believe coming soon. Brooke's survival reminds us that even in the darkest moments, courage can change everything. If you want to hear more true stories of resilience, justice, and unsolved mysteries, subscribe to our channel and join us on this journey. Asterisk, just 2 days before Christmas, in a quiet Connecticut town, a mother of two was brutally murdered inside her own home. Her husband claimed it was a masked intruder, but investigators would uncover a truth so shocking, it could only be revealed by the smallest piece of digital evidence, a Fitbit. This isn't just another true crime story. It's a case that asks, how far will someone go to cover up betrayal? And what happens when technology exposes the lies we tell? Stay with me until the very end of this video, because what you're about to hear is a story of love, deception, and the digital trail that solved a murder. And trust me, you will not believe how this case ends. Asterisk. At 10:16 a.m. on December 23, 2015, a frantic 911 call shattered the silence of Ellington, Connecticut. A husband claimed a masked intruder tied him up and shot his wife. But investigators would uncover the shocking truth, not through eyewitnesses, but through the digital footprints of a Fitbit. What's your first thought here? Do you believe in coincidences like home invasions? Or do you think most crimes begin at home? Comment below before the full story unfolds. Born on July 31st, 1976, in Rockville, Connecticut, Connie Margotto DeBate was the youngest child of Kenneth and Cindy Margotto. Her brother Keith remembered the day he first saw her in the hospital nursery. He said she became the light of their family. Connie excelled in school, built a career in pharmaceutical sales, and most importantly, devoted herself to being a mother. Friends said she had a warm smile, a big heart, and a determination to give her sons the best life possible. On the outside, she and her husband Richard appeared to have the perfect suburban life. But appearances often hide the darkest truths. On that Wednesday morning, Connie went to a local fitness class before returning home. At 10:16 a.m., a home security alert triggered. By 10:27 a.m., Richard called 911, panicked and breathless. He told dispatchers a masked man had broken in, tied him up, and ambushed Connie when she came home. When police arrived, they found Connie shot to death in the basement. Richard, however, was tied loosely to a chair with only minor injuries. If you were an investigator arriving at this scene, would you believe Richard's story of a violent intruder, or would you be suspicious right away? Detectives noticed troubling details. Richard's injuries were superficial. Zip ties binding him were loose, almost staged. Nothing valuable in the house was stolen. And perhaps most importantly, none of the neighbors saw anyone fleeing through the woods. The so-called home invasion story didn't hold up. Do you think criminals really go through the trouble of tying people up and then leave without taking valuables? Or does that sound more like someone covering their tracks? Then came the breakthrough: Connie's Fitbit. The data revealed that after Richard claimed she had been murdered, Connie was still moving, recording over 1,000 steps in the house. Her digital footprint contradicted his timeline completely. And there was more. Texts showed Connie chatting with friends that morning, happy and calm. Records revealed Richard was having an affair. His mistress was pregnant. He had recently purchased a revolver, the same type used in Connie's murder. Have you ever thought about how much your devices, your phone, smartwatch, even your fitness tracker, know about you? Could they one day expose the truth if you were caught in a lie? Detectives pieced it together. Connie came home from the gym, possibly confronted Richard about his affair and double life. The argument escalated. Richard shot her. Then he staged the scene: zip ties, minor cuts, a fabricated intruder. He called 911 pretending to be the victim. But the digital trail was too strong to ignore. What do you think was Richard's biggest mistake? Committing the crime in the first place, or underestimating the power of technology to betray him? For more than a year, detectives built their case in silence. Finally, in April 2017, Richard was arrested. He was charged with murder, tampering with evidence, and providing false statements. The small Connecticut town was shocked, but the case was far from over. The trial dragged on for years, delayed by legal maneuvering and appeals. But in May 2022, the truth was finally presented to a jury. Prosecutors laid out the digital evidence, step by step. They showed how Richard planned to leave Connie for his pregnant mistress, and how he thought he could outsmart investigators with a staged crime scene. The jury saw through the lies. Richard DeBate was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 65 years in prison. Do you think the sentence was fair for what he did? Or should it have been even longer? For Connie's family, no prison sentence could bring her back. Her brother Keith said she was the heart of their family. Her parents, Kenneth and Cindy, endured every parent's worst nightmare, burying their child just before Christmas, and knowing her killer was her own husband. Her story is heartbreaking, but also revealing. In an age of technology, lies don't last long. Devices remember what people try to forget. What drives a husband to murder his wife, stage an elaborate crime scene, and destroy his own family? Was it lust, selfishness, fear of responsibility, or all of the above? Connie DeBate's story is not just a crime. It is a cautionary tale. A reminder that betrayal often comes from those closest to us, and that even the smallest digital trace can reveal the truth. If Connie's Fitbit hadn't been recording that morning, do you think Richard would have gotten away with murder? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another true crime story that exposes the shocking realities behind the headlines. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for staying with me until the end of the story. Your time and support mean everything, and it's because of viewers like you that we can continue bringing these important cases to light. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, share it with others who follow true crime, and subscribe so you won't miss the next case we cover. Until then, stay safe, and thank you for watching.